Hello class, right now we're going to learn about pivot table. Pivot table is one of the more useful tools that you're going to come across when you're working in the future. In statistics, what we want to do is that we want to use data to help us make better decisions in life. And how we use the data to help us make better decisions in life is we need to first organize our data and be able to present our data in a way that anyone can understand. And this is what the pivot table does. The pivot table can organize and group data for us so that it is easy for us to read and understand and analyze. So in this example here, we have Trent Food Mart. And in this data set here, we have many different transactions. So each row is one transaction. And for each transaction, we recorded the sales date, the ship date, the line, the product, the store location, the quantity, the price, and the subtotal for each transaction. So if we look at the data set, we have a lot of data here. If we go to the very end, we have about 1,800 data sets. So if you use your mouse to navigate around the data set, it will be very time consuming. So you can see that it takes a lot of time to just navigate around if you're using your mouse. So right now there's only 1,800 data sets. But if there are more than 1,800, if let's say we have 10,000, 100,000 data set, if you rely on your mouse, then it will be very time consuming for you to navigate around the data. So what you need to know is some of the shortcut in Excel, which I'll show you right now. And the first shortcut is the control button, CTR button on your keyboard, the control button. The shortcut will help you navigate quickly around your data set. For example, right now, I'm in the first row of my data set. Let's say I want to navigate to the very end of the data set. So what I can do is I can click on the control, and because I want to navigate to the very end, so that's why I will press the arrow down. So what I will do is I will press control and I will hold the control. When I hold onto the control, I press arrow down, and you can see quickly Excel will navigate to the very end of the data set. If I want to go to the very right side of the data set, what I will do is I will click on control and I will click on arrow right. And you will see that I can quickly shift my navigation to the very right side of the cell. If I want to shift my navigation to the very top, same idea. I click on control and then I press the arrow up once. And then Excel will take me to the very top of the data set. So just by clicking onto control and then moving my arrow key around, I can go to the very end. I can go to the very top, and I can go to the very right, and so on. So just by holding the control key and then moving my arrow key around, I can quickly navigate around the data set. So that's the first shortcut that you might want to know. And why this is useful is because in the future, when you're working, if you have a lot of data, it will be very inefficient for you to use the mouse to navigate around Excel. So therefore, you may find it useful to use this shortcut here, control plus the arrow key to navigate around the Excel dataset. The second shortcut that we're going to learn is shift plus the arrow key, and that's for if we want to highlight the data. So if we want to highlight the data, what we want to do is we can often rely on our mouse to highlight the data. That's what we can do. We can use our mouse to highlight the data. We can use that, or we can use the keyboard as well. All we have to do is hold on to the shift key on our keyboard, and then we press the arrow key towards the direction that we want. So if we want to go highlight the data to the right, then what I would do is I will hold on to the shift key and then I will move arrow right. If I want to highlight data downward, I want to highlight more data below, what I would do is I will hold on to the shift and I will press the arrow key down. And every time I press the arrow down key, Excel will highlight all the cell for me. If I want to highlight less column, what I can also do is hold on to the shift button on my keyboard. And I can click on the arrow left. And every time I click on the arrow left, I will highlight less data. If I want to highlight more data, then I will click on the shift button and I will move my arrow to the right. If I want to highlight more data downward below, then I'll move down. If I want to highlight less, I'll move up. So just by holding onto the shift and then moving my arrow key around, I can highlight more data, less data by using my keyboard. So just by holding onto shift and then plus the arrow key, I can highlight one row of data or one column of data at a time. But if I want to highlight more data, if I want to highlight all the data in a column or in a row, then what I would do is I will click on Control, and I will click on Shift, and then I will click on the arrow key. So when we're doing this, what you need to do is that we need to click on the Control and then click on the Shift, and we need to hold on to those two buttons. So we need to hold on to Control and hold on to the Shift, and then we can click on the arrow key, and then it will highlight all the data set in that directions. So for example, let's say we're at the cell A5, and let's say I want to highlight all the cell in this column here, in column A, to the very end. So what I would do is I will click on Control, Shift, I will hold on to those two buttons, and I will click on the arrow down. And by doing so, Excel will highlight all the data from A5 all the way to the very end. And similarly, if I want to highlight the data all the way from column A to column H, I will hold on to the Control, I will hold on to the Shift, I will hold on to those two buttons, and I will click the arrow key to the right, and Excel will highlight all these data for us. So I'm going to do that right now. So click on Shift, hold on to the Shift, and hold on to the Control key, and I press arrow to the right, and then you'll see that quickly Excel will highlight all the data from column A to the column H. So just by holding on to the Control and Shift key, I can quickly highlight all the data set that I want. So Control Shift is for when you're highlighting the data and you want to highlight all the data set within that column or within that row. So what you do is hold on to Control and you hold on to Shift, and it will highlight all the data in those directions. So make sure you get used to using these three shortcuts when you're navigating around data, because in the future when you're working, you're going to have lots of data. It will be very inefficient for you to use your mouse to navigate around your data set or highlight your data set. It will be a lot faster if you know these shortcuts in Excel.